I think what you meant was you're right.
Oh, hold on.
Yeah.
Give me 1 second. Give me 1 second. I just realized I still have my real name on.
Okay, well, you can go ahead and change it, but the viewers at home can't see it because of the way I have it cropped. So you're good. But
oh, okay.
yeah. But
so Steve.
Yes,
Steve,
my friend.
I built a flight ready space shuttle Enterprise. Can you see it?
Oh, cool.
What? Where? Doors? How are the bay doors?
I can open them. Watch.
Yeah, I'm gonna be a dick, and
I love all the seams where you can see like all the individual sheets of metal welded together.
Mm-hmm.
That is so cool. Like you can see all the little like pieces on the inside.
That is really cool.
That's sick.
Oh my God! There's even an arm. There's even a cargo arm. Oh!
Everyone sing "Oh Canada" on 3. 1.
Please
Wait
don't.
a minute. Okay.
Oh Canada.
Native land.
That is so cool.
Okay, so I want to say,
Ironic.
I have to say,
Ironic.
the Canadian national anthem is special. There's something about it that just makes you want to join in, even if
there's-
they're
I mean, it doesn't work on me.
but there's no rockets and bombs.
It's a song about how nice the country is and how much people love it, instead of about a war.
The anthem would be better if it included something about the Canadarm. That would get my attention.
Yeah.
Well, here's one thing though. As messed up as the U.S. national anthem is in certain, well, definitely if we get to the second and third verses, right? But the interesting thing is it pales in comparison to the French national anthem. Like we will water our furrows with the blood of the the unworthy and the infidels, and it's like, holy shit,
that's a national anthem, buddy.
Materialistic.
This is country with guillotines. And now, Nick, you can have the floor.
I just want to say, I like how the cannon arm. The crane arm. Whatever. Sorry.
Canada.
I like.
But yeah.
I like how the arm continued to move a little bit even after you let go. It looks like how it would move in space.
Exactly.
It's very natural. I don't know how they engineered that, but I really like it.
That's really cool.
It took me 5 months to build, by the way.
Well, it's worth it because
it looks like
that looks amazing.
It's very cool. It's very cool, and of course, it's the Enterprise, which
I didn't pick up that you built that in the first time.
It's one of my. And by the way, it's one of my favorite little completely irreconcilable, nonsensical bits of the fictional history of Star Trek is that the Space Shuttle Enterprise is acknowledged in the fictional history of Star Trek, which means that in Star Trek there is a space shuttle that is named the Enterprise because of Star Trek. It makes no sense at all.
Time travel paradox.
Wheels within wheels. Wheels within wheels.
Well, remember though, the best part of Star Trek 4 is when they're trying to get find the nuclear vessels, and Captain, it is the Enterprise.
A paradox.
But at least with that one, they actually could. That one wasn't. I don't think that ship was actually named.
That ship was built. That ship was launched in 1961, named in 1959. So yeah, it was well before Star Trek was.
Whereas the Enterprise.
In fact, I think that may be why he chose the name, because Enterprise was the first nuclear aircraft carrier, nuclear powered aircraft carrier.
Yeah, because originally he was going to name it.
Sorry.
Yeah. Okay. I think. Go ahead.
Okay, see Matt first, and then Steve.
Hey, it's my fucking show. No, go ahead. Go ahead.
Where are your guests, aren't we?
Yes, that's right.
Just saying that, we're talking about, something that Enterprise did during its credit sequence, its title sequence, which was also an Easy Rock song. So not the greatest Star Trek.
I don't love that opening sequence though. Like, don't hate me, but
it's just a song choice. It's just a song choice is my problem. The rest of the sequences were like the building of the stations. No, that's that.
No, I'm with you. No, that's I'm with you. It's just a song choice. It's pretty horrible.
I like
that they like it. You don't have a lot of faith in the heart.
As I get older, I don't mind the song so much, and I like the idea of it. Like I like the concept of opening a Star Trek show with a pop song. Like there's no reason why you can't do that. It doesn't have to be an instrumental theme, But I really like the opening montage, and I wish that Star Trek did that more often, like drawing explicit connections between like real life space exploration and the Star Trek characters, because that really hits me in my sweet spot, because that's I wish Enterprise specifically did that a lot more often because it seems like the obvious place to do it, and they hardly ever did it. But
they just get hit in the sweet spot.
Well, of course
they did that in 2009 by building the Enterprise on Earth instead of in space this time. So
yeah. So one thing I was thinking of, because there were actually multiple ships named Enterprise before the series, the Star Trek series can play off the name of the space shuttle being named after the previous warships.
Yeah.
I mean, if you need to reconcile it, I prefer it. Yeah. I prefer that it just doesn't make any sense.
I like the fuck up time travel.
It's the temporal Cold War.
Oh,
come on!
The problem that you have now with a 50-year-old franchise is that events that are supposed to have happened
in the 90s,
in their future, are now 25 years in our past.
Yeah, exactly.
I think
aren't we getting close to the Bell Riots?
Yeah, I think the Bell Riots are probably going to happen.
2 years. Yeah,
they're happening.
The Eugenics Wars are supposed to be 25 years ago.
I'm just gonna say, I just blame Jason. I like Jason, but
the way things are going, if January 6th was an indication, the Bell Riots just may happen,
Yeah, really.
Well, that was homeless people who
Floyd riots. They were called the Floyd riots.
That's right. The Floyd riots was also something. Quickly about speaking of montages, as it were, the movie itself is not that great, but the first 5 minutes of the last Luc Besson movie is something like that. Valeria, something like that. That was that was a great opening sequence, and it did it all to the tune of Space Odyssey, starting with the Mir space station, as it were, going through the generations of humans or of the United Federations of Planets or whatever it is in that context, as it were, meeting all the different aliens and something like that. Cool. So if you want a better montage than the Enterprise one, again, the only problem was song choice. The Valeria City of 1,000 Planets chose the perfect one, Space Odyssey by David Bowie.
Yeah. Well, they could have done a montage of getting them from there to here, or getting busy, and do it like they did What We Do in the Shadows, where you follow the characters through their progression and do a little family ties thing for showing the characters the little kids.
Oh yeah.
Or else all the hookups that got them there.
See, I agree the Space Odyssey would be better, but my guess is, they were on a fairly small budget, as you can tell by how they did everything. Yeah. It's well, we can pay, David Bowie many thousands of dollars per airing, or at least probably $100 per airing anyway. Yeah. And or we can just hire this schlock band to throw some shit together in 10 minutes.
or find their schlock songs. It's like, hey, we like this music. You're cheap.
Yeah.
So, you're doing anything with this? Can I have it, please?
Can we use this for Peacemaker? Yeah, we can do that.
Give you $10.
Yeah, they actually the Peacemaker guys, the guys that did the song, their agent dropped them just before the song hit.
Yeah, well, they just broke up. Yeah, they had just broke up a couple years ago, and that's the thing. They're doing their music is in the style of 80s hair metal. They didn't even form until 2001. It sounds like it would be an 80s hair metal song, and it's not.
It looks like what the characters would do on the holodeck. Somebody's got an 80s thing going on.
Throwback.
Yeah.
Oh, Peacemaker is such a great show. I've loved every second of it so far.
I've not seen it. What is it? A sci-fi show?
No, it's a John Cena super comic book superhero one.
It's a spin-off of the Suicide Squad on HBO Max.
Comic book superheroes count as science fiction.
True.
And especially Peacemaker, because there's aliens, and there aren't none of this. A lot of the stuff isn't actually in the show. It's just mentioned in the form of jokes. He jokes about Batmite. He jokes about matter-eating lad. A lot of the really out there DC characters that the typical, you would think the Zack Snyder DCEU wouldn't touch because it's too goofy. I mean, Peacemaker's just dropping this shit in left and right, going, this is all real. Fuck it.
I mean, when you do the Weasel and Polka Dot Man, you've absolutely, and you make him awesome.
Oh, he is so funny in that movie.
It's like, yeah, you just lean into the goofy. You do Starro,
well,
like
Starro,
straight up Starro,
who should have been the villain of the Justice League movie if there was any
justice.
Well, see, that's the thing, and I think maybe they're finally starting to learn from Marvel, because the reason why the MCU works is that they didn't try to force fit every property to be like in the case of like. It seems up to this point, everything's tried to be Batman. Everything is dark and brooding. And no, Superman's not supposed to be dark and brooding. Wonder Woman's not supposed to be dark and brooding. So Aquaman certainly not. Yeah. Whereas, so you had Iron Man, which was serious, and then at least the original Thor was serious. And then, but then you had Guardians of the Galaxy where they're like, yeah, okay, we got a talking raccoon and a big tree. We're not gonna try to go. We're not gonna take ourselves too seriously here.
Yeah, the joke.
I just rewatched the original Thor, and it is as serious as Kenneth Branagh gets.
Yes. Okay, so Isaiah next, and then like Nick Ensign, if you can remember your point after Isaiah.
And go.
Isaiah.
Okay, yeah. So I actually started watching superhero movies, like Superman movies, and there's definitely a change between the ones of the 70s and 80s and the Zack Snyder ones. Why?
Oh boy.
Why is it with Zack Snyder? Why is he like he's like this angry, like
he loves Iran. There you go. He loves Iran.
Well, see, here's the thing. And this reminded me of something, because I just watched the Aquaman movie for the first time last night, because I hadn't watched it since it came out, but I watched Aquaman last night, and it's okay. I didn't love it.
It's a movie.
It was fine. But one thing I liked about it one thing I liked about it that you saw almost none of in the Zack Snyder Superman movies is Aquaman actually helping people and rescuing people. And there's like a big fight in an Italian village in Aquaman where it's like a bunch of like Black Manta. Black Manta and some of his and some like commandos from Atlantis are like after Aquaman and Mera, and there's a big fight in this village. And while there's stuff happening and like rocks are falling and buildings are collapsing, like Aquaman is taking time out from fighting to make sure people get to safety. Right? He's being a hero. He's doing something to help people. He's protecting people. And Superman, who is the guy who like should be doing that all the time, almost never does that in Zack Snyder's movies. He almost never helps anybody. He
destroys Metropolis and kills a lot of people.
Super early in Aquaman, they have a scene that almost seems like they're trying to lampshade the scene where Superman destroys that guy's car. And so, like, hey, you're that one guy. Take a selfie with us.
Yeah, exactly. Well, and also, and they Aquaman's character arc, or at least the character arc that he has in the movie that I actually think works, kind of, is when he leaves the villains to die in the beginning, and then it comes back on him and bites him in the ass, and he realizes that was the wrong thing to do. By the end of the movie, like he realizes, oh, I should have been merciful. I should have helped them, even though they were my enemy. Now it's coming back to bite me in the ass. Yeah. He has a growth. He has a learning experience,
Or I should have made sure they were dead.
Or I should have just killed them. Exactly. I should have snapped their necks and sunk that submarine.
I think that's definitely cool, and I think the other thing too is kind of funny about the people who defend Superman allowing a large number of actually being the cause of a lot of people dying and not really giving a shit about it, is they're like, well, what's he supposed to do? Leave the city? I'm like, you never watched Superman 2, did you?
Yeah, like
he literally did that, asshole. He literally flew out of the city to follow me over here, get away from the people.
Well, and here's the thing. It's a movie. They're making it up. He can do whatever he wants. If you are making a movie where Superman is fighting the bad guys in the middle of a city and the result is basically another 9/11, that's because you wrote it that way. Right. You didn't have to do that. Like there was someone who left a comment or a reply to one of my tweets about Aquaman where because I said, like, I would have loved, because for the most part I really liked that first scene with the submarine. Right. There were some moments where it was like they were trying a little too hard to convince us that Aquaman was cool. Like there were all those shots of like Jason Momoa like turning around and going, like when they would shoot him or try to stab him, and he'd be like, when will you guys ever learn? And he does that like, a little too much for that short of a scene. But for the most part, I really like that. And if the whole movie had been like Aquaman versus pirates, I'm totally down for that movie. Like that would be a great movie. But then it gets into all the Atlantis stuff, and I'm just like, I don't care about any of this.
But Steve, for a lot of people, that is the most important part. They love that lore
but those
shit.
people, but those aren't my people. But
really?
But here's my point.
You guys know that Atlantis is located off the coast of Florida. Is what the Bimini Road is.
But here's my point. Someone replied to my tweet, and they said, well, you know, they had to do all the Atlantis stuff because they had to set up Ocean Master as the #1 villain, and they had to establish that he's the king of Atlantis, etc., etc. And I was just like, did they pass a law? Like, is there some law that they had?
Even if they had, people don't always follow laws.
Yeah, like,
for example, speed limits.
Mm-hmm. Right. It's like,
what would these speed limits you speak of?
That's where you're supposed to have that covered. That's where you start. Okay, you get up to that speed, and then you go over it. That's like the minimum. That is your minimum limit.
Okay, so I looked through some old episodes of this podcast recently, and I realized that I talk over people all the time. So I'm trying really hard not to talk over people from now on. Anyway, okay. Sorry.
All right. So Nick will be the only person who doesn't talk over people. Go ahead.
So look, when it came to the Aquaman movie, the bit that got me to actually care about Atlantis to a degree was when his brother was going like, "Oh, you dump our garbage here and you poison our children," and then I realized, oh shit, because it kind of reminded me of how we regard like indigenous peoples. You know, this mentality that humans are the virus, and then you have like tribes of humans who are still living perfectly fine with nature, who didn't contribute at all to things like climate change, and yet their communities are the ones that are being punished, the ones that are losing their homes first. And to me, that's what the Atlanteans reminded me of, and instantly I was able to sympathize with them just like that, because they were experiencing a very real problem.
I'm with Nick on that. I had that same feeling.
I just wish the movie had been about that then.
Yeah,
because the movie wasn't about that. The movie was about the rightful heir to the throne horse shit.
So that one of the things, for those of you who have me on your friend list, I posted a video earlier today. It's an Indian historian really just taking, he's having a good righteous rant, like going off on the West, basically saying like, you guys stole all our shit, and then you give it back to us as debt. And then you criticized us for how we live when you created the situation that we're in.
An Indian having something to say about imperialism? I am shocked.
What? It was right. Well, but he didn't just talk about imperialism. I mean, he covered the whole globe. He was.
Yeah. My point is, I appreciate that Ocean Master had a point.
Yeah.
Though, this kind of makes me think about like antagonists being objectively correct about things. So I assume enough of us have seen Spider-Man No Way Home now that I don't have to worry much about spoiling things.
Okay, I don't care. Go ahead.
Willem Dafoe cemented himself as the Green Goblin in this movie. If he hadn't already done it all the way back in 2002, I think this movie showed like, there's been Thanos and villains like that, big villains, but nobody hurts Spider-Man like the Green Goblin does. He really is the ultimate Spider-Man villain. Yeah, we got Venom and Dr. Octopus and all that stuff, but the Goblin is just really genuinely evil.
Yeah. Defoe is so good. Defoe is so good as Goblin. It's amazing.
He's scarier without the helmet. He's scarier without the helmet.
Yeah, it's the face. It's the face.
They almost had that prosthetic face that would like emote with him, just in a more exaggerated way. But he said it was painful to wear.
Emote. Yeah.
It's supposed to look like a kabuki mask or something.
I know, but yeah.
Well, if you look at his house, he has those like all over the walls. He loves that demonic shit. So of course he built his helmet to look like that.
Well, see what's great too about I saw an interview with him about when he did the original the Tobey Maguire Spider-Man movie, and they said like he embraced it. Like a lot of actors would try to, I'm going to try to art this up and I'm going to be all pretentious and shit. He's like, he went the other way. He's like, no, I'm going to be a comic book fucking villain.
The thing that I really don't like about the movie, and this goes for, these movies and the recent video games, is just that JJ is just Alex Jones now. You know, he's just the Marvel Universe's Alex Jones. And my problem with that is that JJ has a point. That whole rant in No Way Home where it's like, you know, wherever he goes, calamity follows and we are left to pick up the pieces. Like, yeah, everything he just said is demonstrably correct. Look at everything that's happened because of Peter's irresponsibility. So my problem is like, you can't have, you know, a character based on somebody who is objectively wrong all the time and then have the character version be correct and reasonable.
Are you talking about J. Jonah Jameson?
Yeah.
Because he's basically just Alex Jones now, and we have a real Alex Jones who is awful, and I feel like they're making light of that. They're casting this image of like, oh, even a broken clock is right twice a day.
That's the trap that movies and TV shows often fall into when they depict conspiracy theories, is that they always think it's clever to be like, what if conspiracy theories, but they're right? And it's like, okay, but you do that too much.
And you
lost your privileges for that trope.
Well, yeah.
Think of something else.
Exactly.
And
that's like all of Doctor Who.
The epitome of that, a movie that has aged terribly. Okay, so I don't know who here has seen the Kingsman movies. I watched the sequel first, The Golden Circle, and I enjoyed it because, you know, stuff like shoving a guy into a meat grinder and making his friend eat a burger made out of him, that's just like abstract cartoon villainy. But then you go back to the first film, and I was horrified. Not just because of how like visceral and real scenes like the church massacre felt, but because the entire plot of that movie is just one of Alex Jones's podcasts put to film. Yet you have this new world order cabal of like all the world's leaders trying to wipe out the rest of the population by broadcasting an evil signal from people's phones.
Yeah,
it's just one of his conspiracies as a movie. And since then, the alt-right has like really grasped onto it. It's like their favorite movie. Like, I remember this guy I used to be able to talk to before I knew what a crazy guy he was. I was telling him about this, and he's like, yeah, but dude, that's why I love the movie, because all this stuff is actually happening. And then he proceeded to say how much he loved, how much it just gave him life, that the villains were a gay black guy, though he made sure to use the F slur, and cripple women. And that the heroes were these nerdy, bookish white guys. He loved that. And I'm just like, I don't talk to him anymore.
So how many times do you use sheeple? How many times do you say sheeple during the conversation?
A couple times.
Okay. Just gotta check all the boxes right on down. Just go, yep.
Haven't talked to him in years. I have to wonder, like, at first I wondered who thought it was a good idea to just take like a conspiracy theory and make a giant movie out of it. And then people tell me, well, you have to understand, guys like Alex Jones weren't that big when the movie was made. It's just aged terribly. It's like, well, okay, but I still can't watch it now without wanting to vomit.
Yeah, that's fair. Dana has her hand.
Your hand's been up.
Yeah, I wanted to go back to one of the previous points that Nick made about the masks, because it English teacher. It reminded me of the poem "We Wear the Mask" by Paul Laurence Dunbar, and I didn't know if anybody was familiar with it.
No.
So it says, "We wear the mask that grins and lies. It hides our cheeks and shades our eyes. This debt we pay to human guile. With torn and bleeding hearts we smile, and mouth with myriad subtleties. Why should the world be overwise in counting all our tears and sighs? Nay, let them only see us while we wear the mask. We smile, but oh, great Christ, our cries to thee from tortured souls arise. We sing, but oh, the clay is vile beneath our feet, and long the mile. But let the world dream otherwise. We wear the mask."
That's beautiful.
End scene. You've got the
one of my favorites because he's one of the, well, he's a relatively well-known poet from the Harlem Renaissance, and it's just he's the one who wrote "Sympathy," which is where Maya Angelou got her got the title for her memoir. I know why the cage bird sings. Yeah, it's a reference to that. They do they pair up really nicely.
On that note, if I could have 2 minutes. So many people have been strongly suggesting that I start making video content again, been requesting it. So I finally decided that yes, I'm going to do that. And because Black History Month starts on Tuesday, I am doing Black History Month themed videos. However, I'm not going to reference Black History Month, and that's on purpose. I'm going to call the series An American History Moment. And I'm going to have, I don't know how many videos I'll get out. I mean, in an ideal world, I'd have one every day. I'm fairly realistic that that's not going to happen, but I'm going to do my best to at least get 10 or 12 out. But they're going to alternate. One's going to be positive things, positive accomplishments by various Black people in history, people like Maya Angelou and the author of the poem you mentioned, stuff like that. And then the next video following it will be some form of oppression or atrocity that happened to Black people in America. So what happens is that people a lot of times will have been asked over the years, well, if those people could succeed, why can't the rest of you? And I'm going to say, this is why, because of X, Y, because most of the time when we've succeeded, there were actually in some cases laws designed to prevent it, and when the laws failed to do that, there were actual just rounding us up and killing us in mass and destroying our shit and taking it away. So to try to make the point, and then the last how many videos I end up getting out, the last negative video will be actually a story from my own family where this actually happened to a member of my own family, where he was a prominent businessman, and what happened to him.
Wow, I'm looking forward to that.
So, I mean, as we mentioned in the side chat, in our video chat, I'll mention in the YouTube live chat too. Like Danny brought up Tulsa, I brought up Rosewood. Just research Red Summer. Actually, it's kind of like especially to white people. Here's a challenge: research your own city or your own major city, as it were, and see if there's any like racist massacre or riots and stuff like that. I bet you'll find a lot of things.
You're gonna find a lot, yeah. And so that's the thing. And so the reason why I'm not going to actually refer to Black History Month at all is because my point is that these are things we should already know. These should be taught in school, and they're not, because and we wouldn't even know a fraction of what we know if it wasn't for the fact that we have Black History Month. So for all the people who don't like Black History Month existing, it's like, well, yeah, if you teach all of American history, including what happens to Black people, what happens to Indigenous people and various other people who've had been stepped on at various times, then we wouldn't need to carve out parts of the year to try to shove a little tiny bit of it into your head.
Yeah. Black history is history.
Yeah, exactly.
It's just history. And honestly, I think, you can start it off as far as Black History Month, but just keep going.
Just
go.
I might.
Yeah, this is history too. But Isaiah, your hand was up. Do you have a point?
Yeah, I have. I actually have a couple of things to piggyback on. What was the other guy's name? Who was talking?
Serious Minded.
Serious Mind, yeah. So I'm gonna be dedicating like some of my YouTube channels for Black History Month to like the murders of like certain Black people. Like I'm doing Emmett Till now. Then I'm gonna do a guy named Mulugeta Surratt who was murdered by some white supremacists. And then I'm also thinking about doing something about the Akui massacre, which happened in Orlando, Florida, like I think 100 years ago, where a bunch of Black people were massacred trying to vote or something like that. Another thing too is it's very interesting because we have a governor that's wanting to like ban like the teaching of history in our schools. But then like when you watch the movie Hidden Figures, like you never like I was never told that the space program had like 3 Black women who were like math computers that got us to the moon. It was always a white sausage fest of like Apollo 13. There's only in Apollo 13 there's only like 2 Black guys in the movie. There's the orderly at the nursing home, and then there's that like PR that NASA PR guy who's Black. And I'm like, we've never known that there was like a lot of like Black excellence in the American space program, and I just wonder how much it set us back, and all of that stuff.
Well,
well, the bigger problem is that conservatives see Black folks or poor folks, or mostly Black folks, as 3 things. I call it the 3 C's: cooks, custodians, and criminals. If we're anything other than that, they're afraid of it because it's Black intellect and knowledge. So it's good to keep these people poor and disenfranchised, and the only capitalism we give them is rap music and being an athlete, because it's a form to get to the elite. We don't want your smartness. We just want you to like dribble a ball or rap a lyric, and we'll let you we'll let you get that far. But
dance for me, Negro.
Yeah.
Well, and to go along with what you're saying, I mean, and even Hidden Figures, which is a good movie, even that, the whole thing with John Glenn, that never happened. They made that up so they could get a white guy for white audiences to relate to that they knew, to kind of make it. So he didn't step up and do anything for those women at all. I mean, I like John Glenn, but we were basically giving him credit for something he didn't do just to make the movie more palatable to white audiences.
There was actually the Kevin Costner character knocking down that colored restroom sign never happened. They had to give him like a white savior moment. Even in the movie like that was centered on black women, they still had to give the white character a heroic moment.
Yeah, well, and actually, like what you said about Isaiah said about capitalism, and this is I try to explain to people why black politics in this country has very often been certainly to the left and very often socialist. I'm like, well, first off, when this country started out, we were a commodity, so we were we were the property of capitalism. So of course we wouldn't be like predisposed in the favor of it. And then even once we were no longer property, we were under law for quite time, like denied of it. And then even when we weren't denied under law, we were boxed out through social action. So,
or when we tried capitalism, like in Greenwood and Tulsa, it was destroyed. So why be a black capitalist if you guys don't want it anyway? But then we got to like conform this idea of if we work at dead end job for the next 40 years, it gives us like, I don't know, some kind of like upward mobility. But then you got like rappers who like, it's like, no, I don't want to be a capitalist because when we tried capitalism and when we tried being smart and all this, you didn't like it there.
If we got around your white supremacist system, you literally took away what we built and destroyed it. So
but you're not supposed to get around the system.
Right.
You're supposed to make do within the system.
That's right.
We're not complain about it.
That's right. We're a cog of the system, not a player in it. But
you weren't supposed to win. No, that's
that wasn't part of the game.
And that's literally what happened to my great uncle. It literally like, hey, this Negro's doing too well. We have to do something about that.
Robert, he doesn't know
that's why I hate Kanye West. It's like Kanye West doesn't represent me. Fuck that guy.
Right.
Yeah,
exactly. But and although I do say to my socialist friends, that's one of now that some of us are outside of rap and sports are actually starting to. I'm like, don't take away my capitalism. I just got it. It's like a new toy. I please let me keep it, please. Don't take my shit away. Everybody else took all my shit away too.
I can't rap and I'm too old to be an athlete. Please.
Yeah. Please let me have my Etsy account. Please let me keep my
it's funny. I see all this rhetoric about humans being the virus, and I just think humanity got by relatively fine for a couple 100,000 years. They didn't completely destroy the world, and then in just the last several thousand years, we had societies like the Minoans who got by relatively fine until they suddenly collapsed. It's like it's only in the last couple 100 years, like a percent of humanity's history, that we started becoming a problem. It's like, gee, wonder what changed.
Well, I got some Mastodon friends that might have an argument or two with you, but your point stands. En masse, we just ramped that on up. Yeah.
Okay, but I mean like climate change. We went
in terms of like
for
the ability to take down a planet.
Well, it's pretty epic. It's like when a serial killer kills and he develops a taste for it. It's like, oh, we can cause the extinction of one species at a time through hunting, or we can destroy the entire biosphere.
But again, this takes me back to the cultures that were like perfectly attuned to their environment and to their animals and didn't like overconsume or anything like that. And again, it was just in the last couple 100 years that, Western civilization took over and started destroying everything like that.
Well, and think about it. We actually denigrated those societies that live simply, right? They're savages. They're savages because they haven't built big monuments to themselves.
It's also hard to sell them. It's also hard to sell them stuff.
The UN has something really funny about how we killed mammoths, how we wiped them out. It's not like the humans were this raving band who are like, No, we just walked after them.
Yeah,
we just almost like mammoths. It takes a lot of energy just to
never underestimate a good power walk.
It's just look for creatures like mammoths and many four-legged creatures. It's not that easy to move Like they can only sprint for a little bit. Well, whereas we can just go at this brisk, easy pace for hours on end. That's really weird. That's not normal.
Still here.
And so I just imagine it's like the movie It Follows, where this poor mammoth is trying to escape us, and then it looks back and it just sees us like a mile away. It's like, oh fuck,
Jesus!
Well, it's like that joke or that thing
we're
about
the zombies.
Yeah, and then eventually the mammoth would finally collapse from exhaustion, and we just finish it. We just walked. We just walked.
And yet the modern hunters who think they're connecting to something primal, which of course, because every ancient hunter had a laser scope and a rifle that could shoot around half a mile away. But so even they weren't really fighting some animal that could really hurt them. They, like you said, you just chase the damn thing till it got tired and then go stab.
Hand a modern hunter a spear and see how he does.
Yeah. Well, I mean, we're the only ones that can, like, well, I don't know about you guys. I don't know about this legs thing you talk about either. But
we make it.
But they're overrated. But no, it's we're the only species, I think, that can kill something over there. We don't need to do anything, and then we build some sidekicks. We bring them along because walking's annoying, and let someone else do extra walking for you.
Yeah, exactly.
And to your point, Felix, not only can we kill people over there, we don't even have to be in the same continent as the thing.
We got better people way the hell over there.
Way over there.
There's probably a planet out there with its own ecosystem, and there's probably some apex predator that just like shoots poisonous spines out of its back or something.
It's called Saru.
Saru. Okay, so
Geek, you've had your hand up.
Man, what was the couple points? Okay, so we hunted the mammoth. So nope, no, I don't want to raise my hand again. I'm now talking. So lower the hand. So we hunted the mammoth. No. How they were actually hunted mammoth is that they were just like in that show, just like prodded them until they finally turned out. So yeah, but it's back to indigenous people, how we kind of call them like savages as were, and this whole thing of the noble savage. David Ringro and David Graybird, before he passed away, they had this whole talk. I can find it and put it in the chat to share, and I have to remember to put it in the comment, where it's no, the noble savage is just an entire myth that Western Europeans, as it were, just totally created because they can't imagine a society before theirs, as it were, and they imagine if people who chose not to live in buildings and the great architecture, as it were, then there must be primitives, as it were. So they told David Rinko, a archaeologist, and David Graeber, the former anthropologist, did a whole talk about the myth of the noble savage, and that's also covered in their latest book, Dawn of Everything, which I'm in now, chapter 10. It's excellent book. It's not a slog. It's big, but it's not a slog because it's easy writing. I recommend everyone check it out. And also to how the indigenous people took care of things as were. Part of the problems with the forest fires that we've been having recently, not just the climate change, but also how we treat the forests as were. It's just the lumber farm, as it were, and nothing else. All the other undergrowth and everything like that, it's not there. We just needed to hey, is there trees we can chop down there? Yes, and we chop down trees there, which is why it's always so dry, and so just enough heat and it will catch on fire. I'm done now.
He did all that. He did all that on one breath.
I just want to Geek reminded me of something. I'm talking about the noble savage thing. I mean, it's looking at it from an English major's perspective. I mean, it's a big problem, and I think anytime you try to characterize or depict what is to you an out group, there's the risk that you will essentialize them. And that's basically what I mean, especially with indigenous people here in the United States, with Native American peoples, they're either, it's like what Isaiah was saying before about black characters, they're either what the 3 C's, I forget what they are, cooks, crooks, and criminals, custodians, cooks, custodians, and criminals. And with Native Americans, it was something very similar, where they were either these terrible savages who did nothing but kill, or they're these perfect spiritual beings who have the answers to all of life's mysteries, or
the magical Negro for indigenous people.
Exactly. Or in more modern settings, they're just alcoholics. You know, like they're reduced to just types. And there was an essay I read a while back about the depiction of Native Americans in film, where the writer basically said, you know, we'll know when we have gotten to where we need to go when people are making movies about Native American characters, and they're just people, and you know, they're not like, you know, magical Native Americans or you know, bloodthirsty warlords, or they're just people, because that's how those societies really were. I mean, they were superior to some of our societies in a lot of ways in terms of how they managed their resources and lived, you know, in harmony with the land, but they also went to war with each other and killed each other and oppressed each other, like
every society has done.
Exactly. They had some good and some bad, you know, like the Aztecs
did some people.
Exactly. The Aztecs did some amazing, wonderful, admirable things, and they also did some absolutely horrific things that are just unimaginably cruel, just like every other society.
Well, you know, white people made it on an industrial scale.
Right. Well, see, that's the thing. I always think is kind of funny is that, you know, Europeans traveled around the globe, you know, and you know, killing as they went. And then they would see other people like, hey, they kill one another. They're savages. We have to kill them. Like,
thank God we don't do that.
You know how long Europe's been at war? Just since its inception. I mean,
well, and that's why even I've try to remind European friends when they criticize the U.S., there's plenty of room for criticism, to be sure. But I'm like, look, we did a lot of bad stuff. We got a late start. If we were to catch up with you guys, the world would be covered in a meter deep of blood. Trust me. I mean, you guys, you traveled the entire planet. I mean, we went in and we kind of whipped capitalism on everybody. You guys went in and you like took over and just like, here, we have a flag and you belong to us now.
Like, you invented this shit. Who are you talking
to? Literally. Yeah, we learned from the best.
I learned from watching you.
Yes.
Except you open the box and instead of drugs, it's like imperialism and exploitation. And, you know, where'd you get this stuff?
Oops. What did I find?
That needs to be a video. We need to make that video.
Yes.
We need to do a collaboration.
Ooh, yeah. Oh, it's just a meme. Okay, Felix first, and then Isaiah next.
Okay, I was gonna go a little further back to the American continent, how they were exploiting each other and everything, and had those grains of as Q would call it, the flower of humanity in them. And I think there was the guns, germs, and aluminum foil guy. Yeah,
aluminum foil, much more useful.
And where he was basically saying, you know, so basically they got a broken tech tree. Them in Australia got a shit tech tree where it was like, oh, you don't have a domesticatable animal, you're effed. You know,
sorry.
Like Europe got cows and fucking goats and horses. Fucking kill everybody on a horse.
Yeah, they kind of got screwed on the ungulans.
Yeah, they got like a llama, and that was it.
And in North America, you have moose, and they don't play very well.
They do not. No. Only until Teddy Roosevelt were moose domesticated fully.
I mean, moose.
And you could ride them.
My wife used to, when she was in college, she went to college in Maine, and they would get moose alerts when it was rutting season.
Yeah. Here they are.
Moose they're ornery, horny, and they have bad eyesight, and they've been known to mount cars.
Well,
they're way bigger than you think they should be. If you've ever seen a moose in real life, that whatever you're imagining, however big you're imagining a moose, it's bigger than that.
Yeah, they're absurdly large. They're absurdly large.
I think Thomas Jefferson sent one to a guy who was pissing all over America, and he says, "Take that, you fuck," you know, and just sent.
Just wait. When moose get excited, does that make them ornery?
Horner. Oh yeah, I like that. That's good.
Okay, I'm out. You broke me.
Felix is done.
So we have hangry and we have hornery.
Hornery.
Exactly.
That's a hornery moose right there.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Nick. You go.
I forgot. Okay. Well, let me bring us something else. Okay, so I've been watching Star Trek, mostly the Next Generation, but other series. I'm trying to catch up on older Trek stuff, and my favorite ones are the episodes where they try to learn about some.
One of us have been watching Star Trek.
Yes.
No.
You take that shit right out of here, son.
Yeah.
So I've been. So my favorite episodes are the ones where they deal with life forms that are just borderline incomprehensible to us. Like I recently saw the episode where they destroy the crystalline entity. We hear so much about it in other episodes, and then here it is, and then it's dead. But just as we're finally starting to learn that like it can communicate, and they could have made like some kind of connection. I don't know. But then you have to wonder, well, what was it just gonna stop eating people? Like,
yes,
is that an option?
Right. What were they gonna figure something out?
But yeah, Laura poisoned the well.
I love aliens that really feel alien, that just have bizarre physiology. I don't mean just like, just slap some makeup on, but it's still obviously a human actor. No, I mean really
like the Horda.
Built differently.
The Horda, that's a good alien.
So look, I know everybody
wiggling pile of rubber.
I know not everybody here is familiar with it, but one of my favorite series growing up was Bionicle. It's just these Lego buildable figures. The thing is, you would never know looking at the toys because they were so gappy and had exposed pistons and holes. But in the story, these beings were alive. Like they were a basic robotic frame, but they had bits of muscle like holding the parts together, and they had a simple digestive system and a heart and a brain and lungs and other organs. They looked like robots, but they could do things like drown. And it was just fascinating. Basically, the only thing they couldn't do was reproduce. They still had to be built and like have the fleshy bits grown in.
Wait, you got a heart and a lung, and you go all that trouble, no wang. You're telling me they left that out?
Hey, see, that's
something that really bugs me though. Is that the one of the writers of the series, like Greg Farshty, when he was asked if love was canon, if it was possible for these beings to be romantic, he said, "Oh no, because they don't reproduce." I'm like, excuse me? When does love stop and end at fucking? Like, can't these beings just emotionally bond?
I believe he was
actually, they could have fucked and just not been able to reproduce. You can.
No, guys, you don't understand. They basically
just
have like
they're
there's
called
nothing
USB
down there.
ports. You just install the love. Like you have love on
like
USB.
A data's emotion chip.
The thing you have to keep in mind is that these are essentially glorified. The thing you have to understand is that these are essentially glorified nanobots. They're like comparable to human size, but they were made to be like repair cells for a giant, nearly planet-sized machine. And so they weren't supposed to be people. They weren't supposed to feel or think things, but they eventually did. And so I'm just saying, like, it's kind of like flipping the bird to ace people, especially saying that you can't love somebody if you aren't capable of, whatever.
I want to hear the exocomp romance.
Or I guess in their case, it would be more like gears fitting together.
Fanfiction.net, I'm sure it's out there.
Real quick, I just want to say that Felix hit on the funniest euphemism for penis that exists. There's nothing funnier than wang.
Wang. Especially if it's said like completely in earnest.
I feel like almost anything can
Andrew
be a double
has issues with that.
Almost anything can be a double entendre if you go for it hard enough. Like even double entendre, that can mean like two penises.
That is, you work with great honor, sir.
Okay, I say it next, but I have a point afterwards. Going back to the double entendre, so I did say
you
next.
haven't made it a double entendre. You're not trying hard enough.
So, how many of us have? Sorry. I was saying, how many of us have seen Don't Look Up, and what's you guys' thoughts on it? I know Steve saw it and all that, but what's the group's view of Don't Look Up?
Yeah, I'm sure if anybody else has seen it, yeah.
I haven't seen it yet.
It hasn't made it to pure. It hasn't made it to PureFlix yet.
It hasn't made it to PureFlix yet.
It's the only thing my mom will let me watch is PureFlix.
The reason I brought all that up, though, is, guys, it's just I want to ask any Star Trek fans here: is there anything in Star Trek that is comparable to the physiology I just broke down? Like, okay, we have the Borg, but those were organic beings that were turned into robots. Is there anything in Star Trek that's like Yes, but like, is there anything in Star Trek that like, you know, it's like a robot outside but fleshy inside, like an upright worker ant?
Sargon's gang.
Yeah, and it's difficult to tell, but I think maybe like the synths that they introduce in the Picard series, like the really advanced ones that have their own planet, like they're kind of suggested to be like that, like flesh android type things.
And also, don't the Borg go like both directions? Like
they're bi.
Yeah, like they don't just start out as like, they don't just add on robotic parts to organic beings. They also add on organic parts to robotic creatures.
They tried to do that with Data in that one. In
I think that was their proof of concept, and
well, because the other thing is like for most of Star Trek history, unless they needed to have a bunch just suddenly show up for an episode and then never be mentioned again, there weren't supposed to be all that many androids around.
Yeah,
you know, like so there weren't too many opportunities for the Borg to, you know, graft flesh onto robots because there just weren't that many.
Well, except for that whole planet that Harry Mudd was
the Mud planet, and then the planet in Picard where there's a bunch of them, where there's like a colony but other than that, you know.
So there's Brain and Brain. What is Brain? Was the only other one that I can think of that was clearly, you know, organic inside a mechanical device. That's and Pike.
You know what?
I went there.
Yes. Nexocomp with a turtle taped to it.
Oh, sorry, but there's one more thing relating to cyborgs and robots and the singularity that I want to bring up. It's from a completely different series. The Mega Man video games. Those have a really extensive timeline that goes over like hundreds and then eventually thousands of years. So you've got the classic series where it just looks like Astro Boy, you know, with these big chunky boots and stuff. Then you get to other series that take us like 100 and 200 years later, where they start to look more slender and human-like, but they're still like all wires and gears inside. But they're advanced enough that they can take certain minerals and eat them and like melt them down and then use it as fuel, kind of like us. And then a couple hundred years later, you get to the ZX series where they are like fleshier and they can do almost all the same things that humans can do. And humans have in turn become more robot-like. Well, everyone's a cyborg now. And it's basically mandated like from birth that you have to have these like things jammed in your head and other bits. It's really dystopian and grim, actually. But it gets hard to tell humans and robots apart to the point where like the only discernible difference really is that the robots have a red triangle stamped on their forehead, which I don't really like. Kind of reminds me of certain other labels. Yeah. And then you get to the Legends series, which takes place who knows how many millennia later, and by then both humans and robots have gone extinct and been replaced by a third species called carbons, which for all intents and purposes look and function like humans. They can grow, they can reproduce, they have DNA and all that. And yet they're able to do things like just like pop off entire limbs and replace it with a drill arm or some other thing without bleeding to death. It's very strange. But yeah, it's like this perfect singularity between humans and robots where they became one and like restarted everything.
Nick, you mentioned how like in these ZX series where Mega Man has like there's almost no difference between like robots and humans, except robots are marked as word. It reminds me of a great animated movie called A Time of Eve, where basically there's like humans and there's robots. You can tell that it's an android, of which is someone's property, and like they can function because they have a ring above their heads and they're supposed to always keep that ring above their head so you can tell it's an android, so you can treat it like property or someone else's property. And it's like, and there's a whole thing in the movie, it's like, would you trust like an android to raise your kid and stuff like that? Until the characters like finally found this like strange little cafe called The Time of Eve, where you cannot out each other if you're an android, and all the androids have the rings off, as it were. And it was originally a net series, so OAN original net series, and how the first episode ended when it's like the main character, who's a high school student, because of course anime high school, but like he finally sees like a person that he met at a time, like, oh, you're the like, and then he spawns him his sentence because he sees that above her is the ring, and it's like. And so he had that like his conscious of thought is like, I was treating you as a human and yet you were an android. And it's a great movie. At time go and check it out if you can. Wow. Unfortunately, it's like probably online DVD, so you have to like buy it. Or there's probably other means you can check it out, but if you wait, it's on Crunchyroll. You can probably watch it with ads, but check out
Anime Age. Yeah, Anime Age, where you go out into the world when you're 10. By your late teens, you're a veteran of several wars, and once you're in your 20s, you're an old hag.
So just on back on the innuendo thing, I put a link in both the private chat and the public chat, although I can't link because I'm not a mod on
I can do that, yeah.
But it's Mitchell and Webb. It's a bawdy 1970s hospital, and there's a guy who doesn't understand double entendre. It's pretty funny.
Mm-hmm. I'll put that in the chat right now.
Also, I searched Mega Man on Google, and all I can say is safe search on.
On. He's over 18 now.
My mom's internet filter isn't working like it should, and I saw some naughty bits things. But drills are everywhere.
Damn you, weebs!
Speaking of like combinations of human and cyborg or whatever, has anybody else? The singularity, yes, which is near, so I'm told. Has anybody else seen the movie Hardcore Henry?
Oh no, I haven't.
I Google that?
I've been wanting to see that.
Yeah, that's another one I feel like I should have safe search on.
Yeah, I know.
But my favorite scene is with the horse, where he attempts to ride it and knocks him off.
Thing and not just Hardcore and Henry.
It's actually on. It's streaming now on Tubi TV for free with ads. But it's the premise is that the entire movie is shown from the perspective of the main character. Like it's not like a continuous shot. There are cuts and stuff, but it's all the same. The camera is always from the character's perspective. So you never see him and you never hear his voice because there's a plot contrivance that keeps him from talking. But it's basically like you see the world through his eyes. And he's a guy who has been, he's a human, but he's been largely rebuilt with robotic parts. So he's like
a $6 million man.
He's a $6 million man, yeah. And there are some really clever things in it. Like there's a certain point where the gimmick kind of becomes a little overwhelming. Like some of the action scenes go on a little long, and it's like you're just you're trapped in a first person shooter that you can't actually play. Yeah. And it just gets to be a little much. But it has some really interesting, not just technical things in it, because it is they pull off the gimmick really well.
He emotes with his hands a lot. It's great.
Yeah, it's a really well-made movie, and the story has some really interesting ideas too. Like there's a character who has been who's been paralyzed and is in a wheelchair, but he can project his mind like into androids and live vicariously through them. And they come up with some really clever, fun ways to use that in the story. And so it's mostly just like an action movie. It doesn't have a lot of like philosophical ambitions, but there are some interesting ideas in it, and it's a fun movie to watch. And I think it's only like an hour and a half long. So
my favorite moment is when he attempts and fails to ride a horse.
Yeah.
I've been watching the day, because it's been so cold around here. I've been actually watching The Day After Tomorrow just for fun.
Wait, The Day After Tomorrow. I was like, oh yeah, that movie where they outrun super cold.
One game that I think might be interesting to turn into a movie is Frostpunk.
Ooh.
Have you ever seen the game Frostpunk? Basically, the idea it's in like a cyberpunk kind of world, and some due to climate shifting, all sorts of bad things have happened, and now the world is turning into an ice world. And so you're in England and you're in charge of a bunch of survivors, and you have to try to keep everybody alive. And there's a certain point where the weather goes through some really serious things and eventually kind of levels out to a survivable level of cold, but you have to last for a certain amount of time. And there's a lot of moral choices as to what you're going to do. The idea, of course, is to save as many people as possible. And there's a bunch of choices where there's certain things where you're like, if you choose one path, you're just not going to be able to do another thing. And then they have a series of laws and policies that you can put into place. And again, you have to make some moral choices about what you want to do. And, I think, it's a really fun game. And I think, if done right, could be a really good movie.
Snowpiercer is what you're saying?
Frostpunk.
Frostpunk.
Well, I know
Snowpiercer, but
when did they get a train? That's all I need to know. When they get a train.
There's no train in Frostpunk. There are automatons though.
Have you finished Frostpunk?
Yes, I did. I finished all of the scenarios.
What I disliked about that is the only thing that got me about that is there is no good win state. There is no way to lead your civilization without either dying or becoming authoritarian in some fashion.
Yeah.
I get the point of that, but I don't agree with it.
Yeah, I mean well, it depends. I mean, I know what you're saying, because there's certainly elements of that.
Well, you can delay it, but there's no ending where your society doesn't become authoritarian unless you die.
But
just like real life.
Yeah, just like real life.
Great.
On a completely different note, since I know we're just about out of time, I was got up a couple times because I'm making pho. And the broth is becoming broth right now. So I've got so I got some brisket and some bones and things like that, and all the spices and the onions and the ginger and everything going, and it smells awesome. It still has 2 more hours to go. Then the brisket comes out, and then another 40 minutes, and then serve. So
the waiting. Oh, the waiting.
What? I know, right? I'm sitting there smelling it. I'm like, I just want to eat it now.
I just want to eat it now.
Something this is why you go out to get that, because then somebody else has to do all the waiting. Be like,
well. See, the good part is I made paella the other night, and I still have a little bit of leftover left. So I'm going to eat that now for my lunch, and then that's why I'll tide myself over till I can eat the pho.
Something I recommend to everybody for breakfast. I forget. It's basically cornbread pancakes. They are so good. They're so
Johnny
sweet,
cakes.
and they don't stick to you like wheat does. I swear, every day that I've eaten those for breakfast, I've lost a pound.
Yeah, Johnny cakes.
Yeah,
just shoots right out.
On that note, it's time to wrap up this show.
It's time to eat.
It's time to eat. Exactly. Later. As soon as Joe mentioned pho, I was like, oh fuck, I'm hungry. There's a place near here that delivers. I don't think I'll order it now, but
what's the name of the pho place? Because there's some great names of pho place you can have.
Oh, I would have to look it up on Grubhub.
I want to open up a pho place and call it What the Pho.
It's already What the Pho in Seattle. There's already a What the Pho in Seattle, but the best name, Pho King.
Oh, perfect. Hey, what are you? We're all going to fucking. Anybody want anything?
That's about double entendres.
That is beautiful. That is beautiful.
I'm planning a big date tonight. I'm thinking about fucking.
Oh, no shit. Cool. Good for you. I mean, and it's something whether you get it or not, you can be happy for them. You're like, oh, awesome. Cool.
I mean, and the cool part is even Bionicles could go there.
Exactly. But it brings it all together. That's what it.
Guys, they're called Matoran. It's a species thing. There is no such thing as Bionicles.
If you need glasses to push up off the bridge of your nose when you say that.
Well, to me, a Tauren is someone that's from World of Warcraft. Somebody that's like a bull type creature.
No. Matoran, because their god is called Matanui, so they're all derivative of him.
Well, we know that they're your Tauren. No one's arguing that they're not your Tauren.
Nobody's going to take it away from you, okay?
No one's taking it away.
Okay.
Good work, man. Good,
All right. Thanks everybody for joining me. Thanks everybody who's here in the call for hanging out with me. This is something I do once a month for my Patreon patrons and channel members. If you're watching and this looks like fun to you, or if you just want to support the work I do on YouTube, you can go to patreon.com/Steve Shives to become a patron, or just click the join button on YouTube to become a member. And this is one of the perks, is that you get the opportunity to hang out with all of us once a month while we do this. So we'll do this again in about a month. Thanks everybody for watching. Thanks everybody for joining me. Charitylinks.page in the description. Help out somebody who needs help if you have a few extra bucks. We just got one last look at that awesome space shuttle model from Isaiah. All right. Take care, everybody. We'll see you next time.
Bye.
Bye.